Okay, so what you're watching here is one of the franchises that David and I had chosen to do this year. We had a bunch of them lined up for this horror month, and obviously we didn't get to finish them. I'm bringing it to you so you can actually see what we were doing and what this was going to become.
You thought the year was scary so far. You haven't seen anything yet.
Welcome back to Horror Month 2020, and now we bring you a not House sequel to the sequels of House, which actually is not really a sequel to House, but it kind of is.
It's a sequel, non-sequel, sequel.
It's definitely not a remequel, but it's kind of a non-sequel remequel.
It's another version of another movie.
It's good. That's a good way to say it. Yeah, I would say that's definitely what it is.
Well, that is what it is. It's actually another version of a different movie.
Which isn't House.
Yeah, which isn't House at all.
It's a different movie, but it's not House.
Here in the States, it was called The Horror Show. But overseas, and everywhere else, outside the country, was House 3. So it was supposed to be a sequel in the House franchise, but the studio apparently didn't want to call it that, and they wanted to call it something different to breathe some kind of new life into it, or some kind of stupid thing like that. So United Artists decided to call it The Horror Show.
Which actually is a pretty cool title for a horror movie, The Horror Show. I kind of like the title.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad title, but
I don't think there's one on here, except for maybe the next one, that has anything whatsoever to do with the house, except for the house, except for this one, because this one don't even have anything to do with the house.
Yeah, there's like basically nothing to do with the actual house itself, where the other two kind of had something to do with a haunted house movie. That's what these are supposed to be, a haunted house movie, and this one is not that.
Okay, so the Horror Show here, House 3, if you want to call it that, has Lance Henriksen in it. And he is a cop, and he's chasing after this bad guy. And what's the bad guy's name, Vince?
What was it? Jinkies?
Jinkers? Jinkies.
Jinkies.
Jenkins. Was it Jenkins?
Jinkies.
That's what Velma says. Jinkies!
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't that what Velma says?
I don't think it was some stupid name. I don't even remember what it was. But it don't even really matter. But the guy that plays this character, he's been in like every movie. You know him as soon as you saw him. He was in Blade Runner. Is it a tortoise? What's a tortoise? What's a turtle? You know what a turtle is? Yeah. That guy.
He was in quite a few movies and always played character parts like this.
He is a bad guy in here, and his weapon is a really scary meat cleaver. I'm like, really? It looked like a meat cleaver you would get at Spirit Halloween. It doesn't even look like a real meat cleaver.
Yeah, I love the part where he actually goes to cut himself, and all you see is just blood.
Yeah, and it's a pretty powerful one, because one swipe will swipe your entire arm off and cut your head off.
He takes off a whole head in one swipe. That's the thing. That's not his actual weapon.
No, his weapon is his mind.
Well, actually, I was going to say his weapon is exactly like another movie.
And we'll get to that.
This movie, for God's sake, was another version of Wes Craven's Shocker.
What happens in this movie is Lance Henderson finally captures Mr. Jinkers and puts him in an electric chair, and he's like, what's he come out and he say? I see you in hell. I don't know what number he said. It probably wasn't that cool.
I'm going to screw your world up.
Yeah. You think your world's screwed up now? Just wait.
I don't think he used the word screw, though.
Oh, I don't know. But it was stupid. So he gets electrocuted, and then all of a sudden he has a power to come back
through electricity.
Yeah, electricity.
Shocker.
In this house. That's where the house comes in.
So what happens in Shocker is there's this killer that played by Mitch Pileggi that gets captured. He's put in an electric chair. He dies. He promises to come back and take revenge, and then he does, and he comes back through electricity.
But you watch this and you're like, oh my God, they ripped off Shocker. But the weird thing with all of this is they were filming this at the same exact time they were filming Shocker. So both these movies were being filmed at the same time.
It's either a weird coincidence or it was actually, I guess they were trying to say that Sean Cunningham, who's still producing these films, I guess he was trying to sort of friendly compete with Wes Craven.
And the extras, he kind of talks about what he said. He's like, well, there's rumors that they got in arguments, the director and Wes Craven, because their movies were so similar. Because after I watched this, I for sure was like, oh my God, they just ripped off Shocker. Not knowing they were making it the same exact time. It's just weird. It is. It is very strange. Because it's almost, literally it's almost the same movie. It's close to being the same film.
That's what I meant by this is House, but it's not House, but it's a sequel that's not a sequel, that's a movie that's not this movie.
I would say, I loved the soundtrack of Shocker, but I wasn't a big fan of the movie because it's so goofy. And I would say that this one, story-wise, slightly better than Shocker.
And you know what? I would actually agree with that. Okay, because with Shocker, Horace Pinker, the killer in there, they tried to make him a little bit like Freddy Krueger, because he was not only going through the electricity and, through the power of the town and the houses and all what, but he was also trying to invade dreams. So he's trying to make him a little bit more like Freddy. And this one is more of like suggestion, I guess. This guy kind of, gets into your head kind of thing, whereas it's not so much a dream, it's just, he thinks he's seeing things.
I really don't know what to say about this movie. I can say it's not a absolute horror show, really, but it's not, I don't know. I can't really say that I love this movie or I hated the movie. It was a semi-entertaining film. I think if Lance Hendrickson wasn't in this, it probably wouldn't be as good, because I think he kind of sort of carried the entire film. But, and the other actors in here were just kind of eh. And then you're trying to come up with a classic bad guy, and you can tell they're trying. That's the problem, is that they're trying to make a franchise. That's what the same thing with Shocker was. You could tell Wes Craven was trying so hard to make a new franchise, and that's what it felt like. You're like, it's just, I don't know. It was trying too hard, I guess.
Sort of like Halloween 3, in that, Halloween 3 didn't have really anything to do with Michael Myers. So this one, it's like you have kind of a Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger character that doesn't have anything to do with a house. So it was kind of like the reverse. And the movie just really doesn't have anything to do with the other two. And it's just, and it's not altogether, I wouldn't say it's altogether bad. It's not terrible, but it's not that good either.
It's the type of movie that if it just popped up on television one night and you sat down and watched it, you'd be like, it was alright. You're like, eh? Oh, wait a minute, that was the House sequel? How would you ever know?
So, once again, we do have some people involved in this that were involved with the other two films, remarkably. But, you have Sean S. Cunningham, who, of course, is famous for Friday the 13th. But you also have Kane Hodder, who, once again, returned to do a lot of the stunts in this movie.
What I never understood, I've watched this movie twice. I watched it and then I watched it with a commentary. was what was the deal with the boiler? What was the deal with the boiler room? What does that have to do with any part of the entire film except for Nightmare on Elm Street?
I didn't understand why it went from the diner into a boiler room.
Also, what was the deal with the Halloween mask? There's Halloween masks all over the basement. I never understood that.
Yeah, they're just like hanging out.
Yeah, there's like 1,500 different Halloween masks. Every time they're walking somewhere, there's Halloween masks hanging up. I'm just like, okay, is there going to do something with this? Or is it going somewhere? Or is there a reason for it? No, nothing. It's just Halloween masks.
Well, obviously, I guess it was supposed to be around October, because eventually they're sitting down eating turkey.
Okay, I gotta tell you, that was pretty funny. Again, Nightmare on Elm Street, they're trying to get this Jinkers guy to be a Freddy, and she's like, oh, this is his favorite dinner, turkey. He loves turkey. And it's lunchtime, and she bakes him a freaking full-size turkey for lunch. I was like, holy crap. And then he goes in, and then the turkey turns its head, and it's the bad guy, and he's like, he starts laughing.
I'm gonna get you, cop.
Yeah, and he stabs the turkey with a knife, and he's like, I don't like turkey. I never liked turkey. I was like, wait a minute, I thought you said turkey was your favorite meal. I don't like turkey. I hate turkey. Oh my god, that was funny. I was like, what? That made no sense.
Which is most of this movie. It really doesn't. I didn't get what, you're talking about the boiler room. I didn't get what the deal was with the furnace.
Yeah, that's what I was asking you. I don't know. I don't understand the furnace. Must have been a bad furnace. The other thing that made no sense in this movie, and they could have cut it out, which I don't understand why they didn't, was the son kept ordering stuff from companies. It made no sense to the plot of the film, and all of a sudden all this stuff shows up from a company because he says there was a rat in something. And he gets all these boxes from companies giving him free stuff, and it had nothing to do with the story.
Yeah.
I was like, what? And then at the end of the film, here comes a big box truck with the guy from Green Acres. He's like, yeah, I got you a bunch of tea or whatever it was. And they're all laughing. Oh, ho, ho. Has nothing to do with the plot of the movie.
It was a really stupid ending.
Yeah, I was like, they could have cut all of that out. There was no need for any of that plot in this film. None of it. Zero.
I was gonna say, and the cat.
Oh yeah, what was his name? Cosmo. Cosmo the cat.
Where did we get a cat?
I found him in a box. He's been in a box the whole time.
So we can't remember the name of the killer. We can barely name Lance Hendrickson. We don't know the name of the kid and why he keeps ordering things. But we remember Cosmo the cat.
Cosmo, yeah, he was in there one shot. I remember Cosmo. He was a star of the movie. Oh.
So one thing I will say right off the bat. Now, I've never seen this movie ever. This is the first time I've ever watched House 3 horror show, whatever they want to call it. It's the first time I've ever seen this. So I'm sitting down to watch it, and I put it in the Blu-ray player, and the title comes up to say they go through this like family photo like video thing.
Right, like the titles come up. Like the barbecue.
So then the title comes up and says the horror show. And what's the sound that's playing in there? Did you recognize it?
Was it Nightmare on Elm Street?
No.
Oh, no.
Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana.
No.
I kid you not. If you go back and listen to Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana, the very beginning of that song, you hear this. And then that's what this movie starts with. I'm like, did I just hear that right? And I had to rewind it and listen to it again. I was like, yeah, that's Michael Jackson. So and I'm sitting there waiting for him to, Dirty Diana. I'm waiting for Michael to start singing. And they just play that sound, and that's it. And then you don't hear it for a while, and then, like, toward the end, it's, like, played, like, 2 or 3 times within the score, Harry Manfredini's score. You hear it again. You hear... It's like, what the hell? Which is also just like Shocker, because Shocker played the beginning of Poison from Alice Cooper throughout its score.
Well, I was going to say that the first and the second one had that Friday the 13th sound to it, because he did the soundtrack to Friday the 13th. In this one, you can obviously hear the Nightmare on Elm Street sound. The soundtrack had a ding, ding, ding. I mean, it sounded a little bit like Nightmare on Elm Street, and you can kind of tell that's what he was trying to do in this one too. I mean, you listen to it, it definitely has that sort of the Nightmare on Elm Street sound to it. It doesn't sound like the other two movies whatsoever.
No, it's definitely a different score to it, but the one sound that was prominent was Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana.
So overall here, House 3, and I said this in the beginning of us doing House, was this is what we're reviewing it from, is this amazing Arrow box set that has all 4 of them in there. And I said, man, it's really exciting to do this horror month because we're watching movies we've never seen before. Well, you know, that could be an issue because we've never seen these before, and if they're not very good, I mean, it's like, okay, we're just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard and missing it, I guess. You know. I don't know. It's like you take your chances, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. We took our chances on this. I mean, so far, I loved the second one. I thought the first one was great. This one, I think, was a complete miss. And because of that, I am giving House 3 a 2 out of the Horror Show 2.
The first time I ever really heard about this was, of course, Fangoria magazine. Even in Fangoria, they were calling it the Horror Show. They hadn't even really started to call it House 3. So that's all I ever really knew about this. I'd seen pictures of it in Fangoria magazine, but I'd never seen the movie, ever. So watching this for the first time, I kind of agree with David. It's not... You know, I know there's a lot of people that praise this movie, and yeah, it's got some it's got some good things to it. It just probably shouldn't have been called House or Horror Show or been related to the House series, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So I would also give it a 2 out of 5.
So now, Vince, we get to the extras here on House 3. And I was actually really interested in what happened here in this movie. I was hoping they were going to explain it. So go with the first extra.
The first extra on here is the audio commentary with Sean S. Cunningham. And he's got like there's like an interviewer with him and asking the questions, and it's probably a good thing they did that, because I think if Sean had just done this by himself, I don't know if it would have been as interesting or entertaining, because I mean, he does say a lot about the movie, but he also tends to ramble on some things as well. So throughout most of this, he's like, you know, they'll ask him a question that's kind of related to the movie, but then he'll go off onto a tangent of other things, or, you know, things that were happening on set and or happening behind the scenes and stuff like that.
We need to point out too, there's 2 different versions of this movie, and the audio commentary, I believe, is on the European version of it, is the one that he talks on. And there isn't a whole lot of difference between the two. There's like a couple different blood sequences, and a couple, that was about it. I mean, it's like usually, most of it's like right in the beginning, and that's it.
Yeah, there's like one certain effect that's added to this. one big effect that's added to this that I guess over here in the States they deemed it too horrid to show. So,
and that's what his commentary is on this European version. Even though I don't think he even talks about that version on here, he just talks about it like it's a regular movie.
But the biggest reason that I even wanted to listen to this audio commentary is because, as I mentioned, what was the whole thing about it being the horror show and it being House 3? What was the deal with that? Why did it become the horror show over here and House 3 everywhere else? And he doesn't really seriously answer it in here. He just still leaves it kind of a mystery.
Yeah, he don't. He just kind of like, well, I know it was called the horror show in America, and then overseas, we call it House 4 or House 3. I mean, that's pretty much all he says.
So, I mean, it wasn't a bad commentary. It was all right. It was entertaining to listen to because, like I said, the guy's asking him questions, so he's answering these questions about it. But it wasn't a whole lot that he gave as far as information on some of the movie. So the actual first extra feature on this film is The Show Must Go On. And it's an interview with Kane Hodder. And basically, it's Kane Hodder just sitting there talking about all the different stunts and all the different things he had to do in the film. And it actually was a good interview. I actually enjoyed it. I didn't mind listening to him talk about it because, after you listen to the commentary where Sean Cunningham didn't give a whole lot of information about the movie, Kane Hodder actually gave more information about the movie. But, of course, it was all from the stunts. And one of the things that was really interesting about it is that he actually got hurt during the filming of this. And he was playing football. And it was something that wasn't even, on set. He was actually playing football and twisted his ankle. So throughout the entire shoot, he had to do all these stunts with a sprained ankle.
So the second extra is called House Mother, and it has the actress on here that portrayed Lance Hendrickson's wife. And again, it's another good interview with her. It's not very long. I mean, she said she was not interested in this movie whatsoever until her agent brought up that Lance Hendrickson was going to be in it. Now, back then, he was a pretty big star. I mean, they said he had just came off of Aliens, and then he had done Near Dark, and I think he did Pumpkinhead before this. I'm not 100% sure. And then he was coming into this. So he got all these huge hit films, and then he makes this. And she's like, that was one of the real reasons that she did it. And she also talked about the director. There was a director that they brought in to make the movie, and he wasn't making it the way they wanted to, so they fired him, got rid of him after a week or two, and then had to bring a new director in, and they all had to get used to the new director and everything, and I think maybe that might have hurt the film a little bit. But it was a good interview. It wasn't a bad interview at all with her.
So the next extra on here is called Slaughter, Inc. And it's interviews with Robert Kurtzman, Howard Berger, and Greg Nicotero, who are all the guys who formed K&B Effects Company. And of course, this is completely about all the effects in the film, which was, once again, a lot more interesting than the audio commentary because, once again, they gave a little more insight as to what was going on with the film itself. But mostly, of course, from the effects side of it. And they, too, also said, there was this other director that started out on the film, and they fired him, and they brought in Jim Isaacs, who actually directed Jason X originally. But they also mentioned about the whole director change, and where this director actually had more to do with the effects than he did as far as directing a film. So they actually got along with him a lot better than, say, the lady that was playing Lance Hendrickson's wife. But the real funny part in here is, before we even mentioned it here in the review, Greg Nicotero said it in this interview. Greg Nicotero talks about how this movie was shocker.
So up next, I have another one here that I actually really, I think this is one of my favorites on here. And it's behind the scenes footage of the movie. And it really is behind the scenes footage. I mean, they show, it's just like you're standing there on set and they're going through the motions, getting the actors together, and you can kind of see them just kind of walking around. And there's a scene where he gets electrocuted, and it kept showing it over and over. He's like, It's like he kept... and Becky was in the other room. She's like, all I heard for an hour was because they kept showing that scene over and over and over. And she's like, "Do you have enough of that already?" I was just like, "Well, I mean, they showed it like 45 times." He was just sitting there getting electrocuted. And
yeah, they did. I was thinking the same exact thing. It's like, my God, how many times are they going to show this?
But it was actually pretty entertaining. I liked the all behind the scenes. I don't know. It was just a really good extra. And there was stuff in there, like you can kind of see how Lance Henriksen acts. He just kind of like, and you can kind of see how a movie's put together. He walks into a room, and one of the cut scenes from the European version is this grinder, and they have these legs sticking up out of the grinder. And he walks over there, and he turns the grinder off, and he kind of looks in there, and he's like, ew. And he walks off. And they show that like 4 times. He walks in there, and he's like, ew. Then he goes, eh. But, and then in the movie, when you actually see it, it's only there for about 10 seconds. All he does is go and turns off the machine. He don't look in there. It was just an interesting look behind the scenes, how they made stuff. Like in the beginning of the movie where his partner comes swinging out and he catches him. And it's just... And then they actually had a scene that wasn't even in the movie. There was another cop and he was strung up against the railing, which didn't even make it into either version. So I actually thought it was a really good extra. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I enjoyed this one. Probably the best... This and the Kane Hodder thing was probably the best extras on this. So next up is the Workprint trims. And once again, this is kind of like behind the scenes, but it's also like deleted scenes to the film. And all it is once the killer is dead, Lance Henriksen turns around and sees his family. It's just them kind of coming together as a family in like 2 scenes. And then they do like 3 clips of a body laying on the floor, and I forget what the second one was, but the last one is a quick clip of a cat.
Where did we get a cat?
Was it Cosmo?
Of Cosmo.
Cosmo! Cosmo makes his return.
Just Cosmo's head. That was it. So it wasn't a very long extra at all. It's literally about maybe a minute to possibly 2 minutes long. And it's just blah. I mean, there's nothing to it whatsoever. That's why I could actually just tell you what it is.
And now we got everybody's most exciting feature, Still Gallery, which I really have never understood why they keep adding this. I mean, there must be one guy out there be like really angry, like Lance Henriksen about turkey. I hate turkey. You know, if they didn't put the Still Gallery on there, it'd be like, wait a minute, where's my Still Gallery? And it's just pictures from the movie. I don't know. I most of the time I skip it because it's like, okay, it's pictures from the movie. I mean, so, but it's on here if you want to watch it.
And they do one thing on it that I don't care for as well, is they instead of like some of these still galleries you can actually just thumb through, but this one is one of those where they actually put it to music, and the song that they put it to is the song in the movie. There's like one song in this film, and it's terrible. It's a terrible song.
Good thing you mentioned that, because again, when I was watching the extras and I had it on the main menu and that song was playing, Becky's like, turn that song off, it's so horrible. Because we would listen to it and I would leave the TV and it's just like, just constantly playing. And she's like, "Oh my God, it's the worst song ever." So that's pretty funny.
Well, the funny part about that is, it's playing on the menu. So I thumb down to the still gallery to watch it, and I hit the button to watch it, and right where that song ended is right where it picks up in the still gallery.
That's a terrible song. It's a terrible song.
And it's just horrible. It's a horrible song. It's just god awful. So the last extra, of course, is the theatrical trailer, and it is what it is. A theatrical trailer for the horror show.
So there you go. We made it through House the Horror Show 3, and it actually kind of was a horror show for Horror Month. I mean, that's what we're bringing you here, is horror movies. Some might be horrible. I mean, I'm not going to lie, because, again, this month we're watching films we've never actually saw before, like the next one is coming up, House 4. I never saw that. I never saw this one. So I also never saw the second one. But I really love the second one. So yeah, you'll see. And remember, everybody, Lance Henriksen hates turkey.
But we love Cosmo.
Oh yeah, Cosmo was the best.